You can use the Accounts Receivable Parameters form to set up sales parameters and perform several tasks, such as define the settings that apply to all sales transactions. You can enter default information that will be used if the information has not been specified at a lower level. You can select the prompt for customer information parameter if the user must be prompted for a transfer of customer master data to the sales order on the sales order creation or modification. You can select the template customer that should be used for any one-time customers that you create. You can also select number sequences for sales order transactions. Let's open an AX and take a look at the settings. Let's go to Accounts Receivable, Setup, Accounts Receivable Parameters. Here on the Accounts Receivable Parameters form, you'll notice that there are many links down the left-hand side. I'm not going to talk about every parameter. I'll just focus on some of the parameters that are specific to sales orders. On the General tab, you'll notice a Customer Fast tab, which has information that's specific to customers. You can specify that when setting up a customer, whether or not a tax group is mandatory. You can also specify if the tax exempt number requirement is none, a domestic plus a Euro member state, or just a Euro member state. You can specify the minimum reimbursement, and here you can select which customer is used as the one-time customer. The Sales Fast tab includes information that is specific to the sales order process. Here you can select the order type. Typically, this is set to sales order so that when you create a new sales order, the new orders are defaulted to the type of sales order. You can also select that it will be a journal subscription, or you could select returned order or item requirements. The period of validity is used to calculate the expiration date of a sales order. When this is left to 0, the expiration date defaults to today's date. However, if you were to type 30 into this field, for example, the expiration date of the sales order would be today's date plus 30 days. You can select a sales order pool that will be entered on the orders by default. The sales order pool is a way to group like orders together. You can also select which reservation mode will be used on sales orders by default, what the origin is for the sales order, and what the origin is for sales orders that come from the Enterprise portal. In the Setup group, you can see additional fields and checkboxes. You can prompt for customer information. This means that each time a sales order is created, the user will be prompted whether or not they want to copy the information from the customer. You can mark orders as voided, which will prevent sales orders from being deleted and marking them as voided instead. The sales orders are removed from the regular sales order form and displayed in a different sales order form where voided sales orders are. You can also prompt for quantity fields when posting documents such as confirmations, packing slips, or invoices. When a sales order has the on-hold status, which is new to AX 2012 R3, you can select a color for that order. If you want orders that are on hold to be displayed as a specific color, you can click the drop-down box and choose any color. Now, a sales order that has a status of on hold will show as red in the sales order pages. You can also select the note type that will be used for sales order holds. There are several fields that are specific to sales quotations and returns, which we'll learn more about in other chapters in the Distribution and Trade course. You'll also notice that there's a Transfer to Sales Order button, which allows you to copy notes when you're transferring sales orders. There's also a checkbox here to prompt for item lists. We'll talk more about this a little bit later in this module. At the bottom, there are checkboxes to require reason codes for certain types of transactions. To require a reason code for that type of transaction, mark the checkbox. Next, let's go to the Updates tab and review some of these parameters. On the General group, you can see several parameters that are related to over and under delivery. There's also a field here for the safety level of invoiced orders. This field is used to specify whether or not a user can modify a sales order that has already been invoiced. If the field is set to none, users can modify an invoice sales order without any warning. When it's set to warning, a pop-up message will be received, and if it's set to locked, the system will prevent a user from modifying a sales order that has already been invoiced. There are several fields that are specific to picking and packing, which we'll discuss later in this module. The invoice section is related to invoicing a sales order, and you can specify the values that will be used by default when you invoice a sales order. Next, let's go to the Ledger and Sales Tax tab. The Ledger and Sales Tax tab includes many fields that control how the posting and ledger integration will work with a sales order. On the General tab, there are some basic settings that control where the dimensions and consumption will come from. In my demonstration data, the consumption, or cost of goods sold for a transaction, will come from the item. You could also choose for it to come from the customer. The primary discount posting is also coming from the item. Again, you can choose that it might come from the customer here. The default dimension hierarchy in my demonstration data is set to use the item, and then the customer, and then the catalog. Other options available for each combination of item, customer, and catalog. This means that the system will first look on the item, and then the customer, and then the catalog. By choosing a different sequence, AX will first look on the first object, then the second, and then the third. Next, let's go to the Prices tab. On the Prices tab, there are several settings that control how pricing and discounts will work for sales orders. The first checkboxes are for charges, which are things like freight or handling. If the Find Main Charges checkbox is selected, then AX will automatically search for automatic charges to be added to the header of the order. The Find Charges for line indicates that AX will automatically search for charges on the line. The Discount field determines how discounts will be calculated. We'll discuss this in more detail in the Trade Agreements chapter in the Distribution and Trade course. The Date type specifies how the date will be calculated for prices on a sales order. If you use today's date, trade agreements will be applied based on whatever today's date is. You can also specify that trade agreements and pricing should be based on the requested ship date or the requested receipt date. If you enable price details, a new button will appear on the sales order form that allows you to view the history and details of all pricing information for a sales order. There are some additional features for generic currency and smart rounding, which we'll discuss in more detail in the Trade Agreements chapter in the Distribution and Trade course. Next, let's go down to the Number Sequences tab. Number sequences play an important role in AX. They allow you to set up the format and the numbering that will be used for all transactions in the system. For example, the sales order number sequence is set to sale_293. If we right-click on this and select View Details, we can view what this format is configured like. Currently, it is configured as a 6-digit number. If I wanted my sales orders to be numbered as SO followed by 6 numbers, I can edit this number sequence, add a segment for a constant such as SO, and then type SO into the value field. Currently, you can see the format is 6 digits followed by SO, but I want the SO to be prefixed, so I'll use the Move Up button to move it up. Now, when I create new sales orders, the sales order number will be formatted as SO followed by 6 digits. Each number sequence can be configured to be unique based on your business requirements and needs. Now that we have reviewed the parameters, let's create some sales orders.